And so it's, for them, their perception is one way or another they can make this a win-win. In other words, how do you take and turn a mud pie into something edible? You have to, one way or another, even though it looks bad for us, for them, they're directing the actions in such a way that if we decided that we can't really deal with this in the American system, we'll take him to the world court. Taking them to the world court means that we then have what's the appeals process with this? Where do you go? And how do you control or regulate a process that is so far away from the people that there is no control or regulation? That once, as we've already seen with centralized American government, if you let all the power gravitate to a position so far away you can't see what's going on, the scallywags gravitate there. How can anybody with any intelligence argue that the United Nations, the World Court, and all of these other structures, who would answer now to no one, wouldn't gravitate to the exact same policy that we were already complaining about with Washington?
Well, they constantly do this. Clinton's so evil, Bush is going to come in and save us. Clinton's been so bad, now Bush is the savior. And then, okay, we get George Bush, and now he's been really bad, so Barack Obama is going to save us. And it's the same left-right paradigm, or Tory versus Labor, where they control both sides. And I know this is simple to the listeners, but the general public doesn't understand this, and it's literally just a new sheet of paper for the birdcage liner. And then after 4 to 8 years, they remove that piece. Or be it 6 years in England or whatever, and they just remove it. Same thing in Israel, same thing in Germany. We have to get back to basic issues to try to explain this to the public, issues of liberty. But, a lot of people thought Bill Clinton was going to go for martial law because we saw the plans, executive orders, the gear up. But that started before even Reagan. And it's just gotten bigger and bigger and bigger now where they could try it, but it may be a Barack Obama that does it. It may be a John McCain. But you're saying you think there's a lot of evidence that it may happen now.
Well, that's the first window, is there's a sliding scale. If Bush decides to make the effort to do this, the problem that we have is how many people, for instance, in the military would actually go along with it.
Well, if there's a terror attack, even if people are awake, it tends to make a lot of people who are on the fence go ahead and get in line.
Right. The way that this would have to be done is from the military perspective, and other people who are in agencies even who do not go along with or agree with what's happening, there would have to be a very quick containment bubble to restrict it from expanding into the crisis mode, which is what they want.
And by the way, this isn't a radical thing we're saying. Under Nixon, the military and others, it was publicly said, and Congress said, do not launch any military operations, do not stage any events.
Right, exactly. However, go back before that, just exactly something that everybody has disclosed. You've had it in your videos, Operation Northwood, which goes back before Nixon.
And Kennedy said no, and they killed him. And
that's where, again, now when people ask, well, why would they have said that to Nixon? Inside the system, they already understood, because of the documents that now have been declassified, they knew within the system that was a possibility. In fact, it was a probability.
On September 12th, in the Washington Post, they had a Pentagon report put out from the Navy. Remember that, saying Israel is capable of staging false flag, staged terror events as a pretext to launch a war in the Middle East.
Exactly.
Now, again, we had those warnings, those leaks slipping out there. Somebody declassified Operation Northwoods when it wasn't supposed to be declassified, slipping things out. So we have a lot of friends inside the government.
The system understands that this scenario, if it's played out, if you're an analyst of any kind, if you're a person working within the system in any way with authority or with responsibility, that you can walk through step by step to see the end result. And it's so obvious now that it goes back to H.G. Wells, what he stated in The Open Conspiracy. Said at a given point, it would become so obvious that it would be impossible to hide the agenda. And that at that point, it would be the most dangerous for the ring knockers, for the Council on Foreign Relations, the Bilderbergers, whoever, the Bilderbergs, in that what would happen is all of their actions could be seen by even the most naive of individuals, or at least they would ask questions. The problem is that they're not all powerful. This is what people make a mistake on. They want everybody to believe that, but that goes back to the basic rules of warfare, be it European philosophy or Asian, that the basic rule is to convince your enemy that the war is lost before the first arrows
left the bow, as you said, Sun Tzu. But we're going to go to break and come back with a final main transmission, and then do 20 minutes if you can do it in overdrive, just for internet audience alone. PrisonPlanet.tv and InfoWars stream listeners. But you're absolutely right about that, Mark. So we'll come back and get more into those issues with Mark Koernke. I'm Alex Jones, your host. The websites are InfoWars.com, InfoWars.net, PrisonPlanet.tv, and PrisonPlanet.com. We'll also give you Mark's numbers before he leaves us. And we're going to come back and talk about Admiral Fallon and some of the other brass leaving. We'll get his take on what that means. Stay with us. Final segment, the main radio broadcast with Mark Koernke, who's here in town. It's great to be able to meet him in person all these years, talking to him over the telephone or on the radio. We're going to have him on with us for 20 minutes. That's the 3:20 Central Standard Time. In fact, I'm going to give you my local studio number for anybody that wants to call in and talk to Mark in that commercial-free segment. Then on the web, the rebroadcast will begin from the first 3.5 hours of the show with Lindsey Williams. We had back on today Dr. Stan Monteith, Webster Griffin Tarpley, and, of course, Steve Watson as well. And that's the issues I wanted to bring up to you, Mark. He opens up the Sunday paper in England. Steve Watson lives in London. British kids encouraged to become climate cops. You go to the website, they wear uniforms. It says report on your parents, it's climatecops.com. They build a dossier on your parents. You spy on them and report back to the government. This is what Barack Obama's calling for, everything we've said, but they're really announcing it right now. Your take?
Well, interesting. That's exactly where I'd go. Isn't it fascinating? See, for everybody, most people say, well, this is a unique idea by this dynamic individual who just pulled this out of his hind end. It was a plastic bag, okay? And it was very messy, very stinky. But he took the plastic bag off and look what he discovered. When in reality, what we see is, and they don't expect this to happen, is for everybody to be able to demonstrate a coordinated effort by a series of individuals who supposedly are disassociated. Remember, they'll claim, oh, I don't know who that guy is. Well, wait a minute, okay? The exact same thing that you just proposed here in the United States, this shyster over in England just dropped in everybody's lap.
And in Australia, they're telling him a new law, 4-minute showers. I mean, it's just all about we control the resources.
Except, and there again, what's fascinating about that is, and again, purely control. It's just the idea of control. When you look at the changing technologies, when you have all of the conservation and recycling systems in place, why would you have to take a 4-minute shower? The system is, for instess, understanding organics.
But they're not doing any of the real good environmental stuff.
Oh, no. It's purely designed to get you into the nutcase scenario of being a plebe, being a slave, being a peon. Otherwise, think about it. With closed system technologies, I got into this years ago back in the 70s.
Well, they told us it's going to be a rationing card. Everything you buy is on that. It also surveils you.
Well, that goes right back to the Soviets. Remember, people used to stand in line for toilet paper every day. People used to stand in line for toothbrushes every day.
Making you dependent on the state.
And again, for everybody to say, well, if they just gave it a chance, it had a chance. It killed 100 million people. It lasted 70-plus years. It fogged off into history only so it could be the amoeba could shift over, and drop itself right in the middle of the United States and the unfortunates in England. And the comical part about it is, I'm sorry, guys, but I would guess that George Orwell was right. 1984, guys, come on.
Oh, this is directly out of that. It's
right.
It's a playbook when you read the website.
Except that an interesting thing, years ago, my father had to take some additional college classes. He worked as an apparatus supervisor in designing equipment for the fire department that he worked for. And one of the things back in the 70s that came up with these honest college professors who were talking about engineering and also economics, they said, chances are, and this was said, I had a class at Eastern Michigan. He took a class at Eastern Michigan with a totally different professor. And both of them said the same thing. They said, chances are, within a very short period of time here, we're going to have a war waged against us, and we are going to have to fight, and we are going to have to kill the ecologists, the eco-freaks, because what's going to happen is they're going to deem, and he said, watch how this works.
They understand it's about getting control of resources,
and killing people. The bottom line is, what's the agenda you keep hearing? We've got to kill off 80%. Well, you know what I say, as I've said before, them first. You go jump off the cliff like the lemming and let me watch. Oh, that doesn't look good, Alex. I don't think we'll do that. We'll stay here and let the next lemming. Oh, hey, those ecologists don't bounce very well.
But again, and it's about co-opting real environmental and conservation.
That's right. In other words, we have good projects and policies we can implement. They're just not being implemented. Or if they are, the idea is to still keep you in a narrow track that puts you in a time lock 20 years old.
Okay, we're going to be right back in overdrive. One place to listen on the streams at INFOWARS.com or PrisonPlanet.tv. In fact, we're just going to continue rolling right now for everybody at INFOWARS.com.